Have you ever stopped to think about how it's possible for a gigantic metal object, weighing thousands of tons, to not only float on the surface of the water like an ordinary ship, but also to dive in a controlled manner to absurd depths of hundreds or even thousands of meters below the ocean without simply plummeting like a stone to the bottom and becoming crushed scrap metal under the overwhelming pressure of the water? It seems like magic, doesn't it? But the truth behind this technological feat is even more fascinating than any illusionist's trick, and involves a brilliant combination of physics, naval engineering, and pure human ingenuity that took decades to perfect. The answer lies in something you probably never imagined existed inside a submarine. A system so ingenious that it allows these machines to defy the laws of nature in a way that seems impossible at first glance. Get ready, because what you're about to discover will completely change the way you see these incredible underwater vessels that silently navigate the deepest oceans of our planet. It all starts with a fundamental concept in physics that you probably learned in school but never imagined would have such a spectacular application in real life. And that concept is called buoyancy or thrust. That same force that makes you feel lighter when you're in a swimming pool, and which was discovered by the Greek genius Archimedes more than 2,000 years ago. Archimedes' principle states that any object immersed in a fluid receives an upward buoyant force that is exactly equal to the weight of the volume of fluid it displaces. And it is precisely this principle that explains why some objects float while others sink immediately. A steel ship can float not because steel is light, but because the shape of the hull creates an enormous volume that displaces a gigantic amount of water. And if the total weight of the ship is less than the weight of this displaced water, it floats beautifully on the surface. But here comes the truly ingenious part of submarines that completely differentiates them from any ordinary ship. They need not only to float on the surface, but also to sink in a controlled manner and then resurface when necessary, all without using engines or propellers to push the vessel down as if it were an airplane flying upside down underwater. The whole secret lies in the ballast tanks, which are special compartments built inside the submarine's hull, specifically designed to be filled with seawater or emptied with compressed air, thus altering the vessel's total weight quickly and efficiently. When a submarine is on the surface and the crew decides it's time to dive, they simply open valves that allow ocean water to enter the ballast tanks, expelling the air that was inside through openings at the top of the tanks. As water enters and replaces the air, the submarine becomes progressively heavier. Its buoyancy decreases, and it begins to sink gently towards the dark depths of the ocean. It's a surprisingly simple process in theory, but absolutely crucial in practice, because any error in calculating the amount of water needed can result in an uncontrolled dive or an inability to properly submerge. Naval engineers designing submarines need to calculate with mathematical precision exactly how much additional weight is needed to make the vessel submerge at the desired speed and reach the planned depth without exceeding the structure's safe limits. Now, you might be wondering how on earth the submarine manages to return to the surface after being down there in the depths with all those tanks full of heavy water. And the answer is as elegant as the diving process itself, but it works in exactly the opposite way. When the crew decides it's time to return to the surface to replenish the air supply, they activate a high-pressure compressed air system that forces the water out of the ballast tanks through the same valves that allowed it in. The compressed air is stored in special cylinders inside the submarine under extremely high pressures, sometimes reaching 200 or 300 times the normal atmospheric pressure. And when this air is released into the ballast tanks, it literally expels the water back into the ocean. As the water is replaced by the much lighter air, the submarine regains its positive buoyancy and begins to rise naturally towards the surface, propelled by the buoyant force, which is now greater than its total weight. It is a technological ballet of natural forces being manipulated by human ingenuity, a dance between weight and buoyancy that allows the submarine to control its vertical position in the water column with impressive precision. But there's much more going on here than just filling and emptying water tanks, because submarines have to deal with something that very few other man-made machines have to face: the crushing pressure of the ocean depths, which increases by approximately 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of descent. When you're on the surface, the atmospheric pressure around you is about 1 atmosphere, or approximately 1 kilogram per square centimeter, which Doesn't seem like much, but is enough to feel if you quickly climb a mountain. Now imagine descending 300 meters below the ocean surface, where the pressure is 31 atmospheres. That is, 31 kilograms, being pushed against every square centimeter of the submarine surface. It's absolutely brutal force that would be capable of crushing an ordinary car as if it were an empty soda can, turning metal into twisted scrap metal in a matter of seconds. That's why submarines need to have incredibly strong hulls, usually made of special, high-strength steel or titanium alloys in the most advanced models, with thicknesses that can reach several centimeters of solid metal and circular shapes that distribute pressure evenly throughout the structure. The maximum depth a submarine can reach depends fundamentally on the strength of its hull and the structural design of the vessel. There is a depth called the collapse depth, beyond which external pressure simply overcomes the metal's resistance and the hull implodes catastrophically, instantly killing the entire crew. The most advanced modern military submarines can dive to operational depths of 300 to 600 meters, with theoretical maximum depths slightly beyond that, before reaching the critical point of structural collapse. Scientific research submarines and deep-sea exploration vehicles use special designs with titanium spheres and other engineering tricks to reach much greater depths, some even reaching the Mariana Trench at almost 11,000 meters deep, where the pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than atmospheric pressure. Each dive to these extreme depths is an impressive demonstration of what human engineering can achieve when confronted with the most brutal forces of nature. Inside the submarine there is also something called a trim tank, which is different from the main ballast tanks and serves to make fine adjustments to the buoyancy and balance of the vessel. You know when you're trying to balance a ruler on your finger and you need to make small movements to maintain perfect balance? That's basically what the trim tank does for the submarine, allowing the crew to transfer small amounts of water between different compartments to keep the vessel perfectly level horizontally and in neutral buoyancy. That magic point where the submarine is neither rising nor falling but remains stable at a specific depth. This neutral buoyancy is absolutely crucial for covert military operations where the submarine needs to remain stationary at a certain depth without making any noise, waiting or observing without being detected. Submarine operators are extensively trained to master the delicate art of adjusting buoyancy with kilogram-level precision, taking into account factors such as water temperature, salinity affecting density, fuel consumption that changes the vessel's weight, and even the crew's consumption of food and water over weeks or months of submerged missions. Another absolutely fascinating aspect that few people know is that submarines also use hydrodynamic control surfaces called horizontal rudders or diving planes, which function like the wings of an aeroplane but horizontally, creating forces that help control the angle of dive and the vertical directional stability of the vessel while it is in motion. When the submarine is navigating forward and the crew wants to descend faster or ascend faster, they adjust the angle of these rudders to create a hydrodynamic force that pushes the nose of the submarine down or up, complementing the effect of the ballast tanks. It is exactly the same aerodynamic principle that allows an airplane to ascend or descend during flight, only applied underwater where the fluid is much denser and the forces are proportionally greater. This combination of buoyancy control through ballast tanks and hydrodynamic control through rudders gives submarines an impressive three-dimensional maneuverability in the underwater environment, allowing them to perform controlled dives, gradual ascents, and even maintain specific depths with precision while navigating at considerable speeds. The evolution of submarines throughout history is an epic saga of trial and error, tragedies and triumphs, dating back centuries when visionary inventors dreamed of vessels that could travel beneath the waves. The first prototypes were little more than pitch-sealed wooden barrels operated manually by rowers who would dive for a few minutes before needing to return to the surface to avoid suffocation, variable floating coffins that killed several of their courageous or insane operators, depending on your point of view. It was only in the late 19th and early 20th centuries that technology advanced enough to create minimally functional and safe submarines, using diesel engines for surface navigation and electric batteries for limited submerged propulsion. The true revolution came with nuclear propulsion in the 1950s, when nuclear submarines could remain submerged for months on end without needing to surface to recharge batteries or renew air, using nuclear reactors to generate electricity and even produce oxygen through the electrolysis of seawater. Today, nuclear attack submarines and gigantic ballistic missile submarines are some of the most sophisticated and lethal machines ever built by humankind, capable of circumnavigating the globe completely submerged, operating at depths where sunlight never penetrates and where the silence is broken only by the discreet hum, equipment, and the occasional ping of sonar. The crew of a submarine lives in a world completely different from the one we know on the surface. A claustrophobic environment of narrow corridors, constantly recycled air, and the permanent awareness that between them and instant death lies only a metal wall under tremendous pressure. Each crew member is extensively trained, not only in their specific roles, but also in emergency procedures to deal with floods, fires, system failures, and rescue scenarios that very few people in the world need to consider. Psychological training is also fundamental because spending weeks or months in a submerged metal tube without natural light, without frequent communication with family, and with the knowledge that any critical error could result in the death of everyone on board, requires a special kind of courage and mental stability that not everyone possesses. Meals are meticulously scheduled. Personal space is practically non-existent, with crew members sleeping in cramped bunks and sharing minimal facilities, and every gram of weight added to the submarine through supplies or equipment needs to be carefully calculated and compensated for to maintain accurate buoyancy calculations. So now you understand that submarines don't sink uncontrollably into the depths because they are meticulously designed to control their buoyancy through an ingenious system of tanks that can be filled with water to increase weight and allow submersion, or emptied with compressed air to regain buoyancy and allow surfacing. The combination of extremely resistant hulls that withstand crushing pressures, hydrodynamic control systems that allow precise maneuvers, and the ability to adjust buoyancy in real time makes modern submarines true masterpieces of naval engineering. Each dive is a testament to humanity's ability to conquer naturally hostile environments, using science, mathematics, and technology to create machines that defy intuition and expectations. And if you were impressed by this incredible ability of submarines to dive in a controlled manner to hundreds or thousands of meters deep, imagine how many other amazing technologies exist out there that you don't yet know about and that are equally fascinating when you understand the scientific principles and ingenuity behind them. Hey you, who just discovered this incredible secret about how submarines work. Tell me in the comments if you would have the courage to enter a submarine and spend weeks submerged in the depths of the ocean, or if just thinking about it makes you feel claustrophobic. And don't forget to leave a like, because this type of content takes a lot of work to research and produce, but it's worth every second when I see that I'm helping curious people like you better understand the fantastic world of science and technology. So let's strengthen the channel by subscribing and activating the bell so you don't miss any incredible curiosities coming soon. Oh, and don't go away yet. Click on that video that's appearing on your screen right now and continue discovering more fascinating curiosities that will blow your mind with incredible knowledge.